If you knew nothing about my story, I think I would tell you that, I guess life was going pretty good. Obviously, everybody has the ups and downs and stuff. Me and Misty was living at the house, and things were going fairly well. And then on December 5th, the house caught fire. So we went to bed that night, probably about 4:30 or so in the morning. I woke up hearing a crackling noise. I thought it was, probably the animals. We had a dog and 2 cats. The cat likes to pick up food with its paw and try to eat it, and it'll drop in the metal bowl. And that's kind of what the crackling sounded like. So when I heard that, I just thought it was them in the kitchen, probably messing around with their food bowl. And so I kind of rolled back over, to go back to sleep. And then I heard it again. And I thought, man, what are those animals doing in there? And so I got up to go see. So I went through the hallway that goes into the living room. In the corner of that room, I saw fire going from the floor to the ceiling. I can't really say on camera what my thought was, but it was, oh no, the house is on fire. And, I thought, well, if I get out that door, my shop's out there and there's a water hose right there. Maybe I can knock it down or put it out. So I ran back there, tried to get out the door. It was really hot back there, really hot, like an oven hot. There was so much smoke back there, I couldn't really see real good. I remember fiddling with the doorknob, trying to get it unlocked. The smoke almost made me pass out. I fell down to my knee, and I thought, I've got to get out of here. Otherwise, I'm going to die back here. So I got up off my knee, and I thought, I've got to go get Misty up, because clearly she's a heavier sleeper than I am, because she was still dead asleep. And so I started to go back out the doorway that I'd just come in, but by then the flames had covered that doorway, and the whole doorway was engulfed in flames. But I knew that was the only way to get back to where she was, to get her up and get her out of there. So it really wasn't a choice. I knew I had to go through that. So I just held my breath and ran through it. So I went and got her up, and we got outside. Once I sat down in the yard and tried to call 911, that's when I realized I was burnt.
I'll never forget the urgency in his voice. Just, Misty, get up. We got to get out of the house. I can still hear him say that to me. And I grabbed the stuff that I could that was right there beside her bed on my nightstand. And like I said, I made it to the bedroom door, and then I just froze. It was awful. It was devastating to see how bad he was burned. And he just, at the point in time, he didn't even feel anything. And he was just going off adrenaline. He did not feel anything. He was like, oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about this. And I'm like, how can I not worry about that? It was awful. And
I can still picture it, like it just happened yesterday. I remember running through those flames and seeing like the embers and the sparks like fly past me, I guess from just me running through there, or maybe I rubbed up against the wall or something. I don't know, but I had no idea that I was burnt or anything. Like I said, until I got out of the house, I sat down in the yard and I tried to unlock my phone. And that's when I looked at my hand, and I noticed skin hanging off my hand. I looked at my arm and noticed skin hanging off my arm. That's the first time I noticed I was burnt. And I told Misty, I think I got burned a little bit. And I remember her saying, a little bit? You got skin hanging off of you.
The night that Robbie's house burned down, I was off on Thursday and Friday of that week. And I had told my lieutenant that was working that day, I said, hey, I'm on vacation. Don't call me unless there's something serious. I got a phone call from the lieutenant that was on duty that day. And so I knew immediately. I jumped out of bed. I knew it was serious. I answered the phone, and he just started telling me. He was like, hey, Robbie's being transported to the hospital. He's got severe burns, he's stable, and just starts going down the list. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, what happened? And he was like, his house is burned down. I just remember getting off the phone, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen just before Christmas. Him losing everything. So I told my lieutenant, I said, keep me updated. Let me know when the sergeant gets up there. I need to know how bad this is. And I said, do we know what hospital? And he was like, we don't know what hospital yet. And I said, well, how bad was the burns? I understand he's stable, but how bad was the burns? And he was like, The fire marshal said that it was relayed to them that he was burned pretty bad.
You know, one of my concerns as a chief, every night I go to bed hoping that I don't get a phone call, which I get a lot of phone calls at night or throughout the day on the weekends. Are my folks going to be safe and that nobody gets hurt and everybody goes home tomorrow? And I've gotten those calls before, and when you first get that call, you don't know, what the outcome's going to be, what their actual condition or anything is. And in Robbie's case, I was actually at a spiritual leadership group up at North Star Church. Mike Lynch leads that group. And so, when my phone rang, it's kind of all the chiefs are in there and we've all got our phones laying out on the table because we all get those phone calls and everything, responding to messages and all that. But when my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning, I knew something was going on. And so when I answered, it was my deputy chief, and what she told me is that Robbie's house had caught on fire. We didn't really have a lot of details yet, but him and Misty, his fiancée, were being transported to the hospital.
I remember I was going to call Captain Richardson because she's my direct supervisor. I was going to call her on the way to the hospital, and I got Misty to give me my phone, and I asked her, I'm like, well, I need to call Richardson and tell her I'm going to be out at work for a couple of days. And I asked Misty what time it was, and I remember she said, I think 5:03. I'm like, no, I'm not going to call her this early and wake her up. I'll call her later.
I remember walking in the room, and the first thing he said to me when I walked in was, what are you doing here? And how did you find out I was in the hospital? And I said, I looked at him laughing because he's laughing and joking, so that made me feel good. And I said, well, why did you not call me and tell me you were being transported to the hospital? And he was like, well, I thought about it. He's like, but in the ambulance, I remember asking the paramedics what time it was, and they said it was, like 5 a.m. And I was like, I can't call Captain Richardson yet. I don't want to wake her up. She's off. I don't want to bother her. I'll call her later. And I'm like, you need to call me on something like this. And he was like, well, you would have found out. I was going to call you around 8 o'clock. And I'm like, Robbie, seriously? I'm like, this isn't funny. And he's laughing the entire time. And he has an oxygen mask. So he's taking his oxygen mask off. He's getting in trouble by the nurses while I'm there. And I'm just like, okay. I was like, I cannot believe this. I was like, I was dumbfounded because, one, it was devastating. But two, he cared so much not to bother me and wake me up that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. What kind of supervisor am I that they don't want to call and wake me up?
When I saw the coworkers, not only them two, but over the next day or over the next 24 hours, I would say probably half the department came up there and saw me, and that made me feel very good. It meant a lot. I mean, so much. It's almost making me tear up right now. I didn't realize I had that much support here. I mean, I knew people like me. I knew people liked working for me. But it meant so much, probably more than anything that's ever happened to me here.
I think with this incident, it's changed my life, just knowing to appreciate things, more. I felt like I was appreciative and thankful. I go to church. I feel like my faith is strong, but it did grow stronger after this happened. I'm just glad that God gave me the opportunity to be able to help and assist Robbie and Misty.
I mean, I guess always throughout my life, faith has meant, believing in God or a higher power, and I've always done that. But I think it does have a little bit different meaning now. This situation has kind of made me realize that there's more important things than, stuff. There's more important things than yourself. And which we all kind of believe that, on some level, but I don't know. It has a completely different meaning now, and it's on a lot higher level than it used to be. I'm definitely not any kind of hero, so hearing that stuff it's kind of embarrassing. To me, it was no choice, and to me, any one of us would have did the same thing to get a loved one. I work with people every day here especially the folks on my shift, that I have zero doubt that any one of them would do the same thing for even somebody they don't know. And I simply did it for somebody I know and love. And these guys would do it for somebody they don't even know.
Robbie is my hero, even though he doesn't think so. Because if he wouldn't have got me up, I would have never woke up. I would have just died from carbon monoxide poisoning. And I am thankful for him every day, and I appreciate him. And I love him with all my heart.
Me and Misty's always been close, but I do think that this situation, I've always been afraid to get married, honestly. But you know, she stayed at the hospital, slept on a chair while we were there, the whole 16 days. And it made me realize maybe it's time for me to make that commitment to somebody. And so I thought, you know, we have no other Christmas gifts. This would maybe be a good gift for her. And so I asked her if she wanted to get married. She said yes, and so that's the plan. I thank God that he got us out of there and got us out of there alive and okay. You know, as far as the community, I know they've made donations through things that the department has set up, and I really appreciate that. Those donations have really helped us get settled in and get somewhat back to normal in our temporary home. As far as the department goes, I would say thank you. Y'all have shown me love that I have never seen, and I love y'all back.